Welcome to our Act 3 series, where I talk to some of our client families here at Metis Ireland to discover, well, what's their definition of true wealth? What does Act 3, or retiring with purpose, what does that look like? I hope you enjoy the series, and thank you in advance to my guests who are going to join me here at the studio at Metis Ireland. Welcome back to the third act series. It's September. It's time for a reset. We're going to do it a little bit differently for this episode. Today I'm joined by Joe O'Connor. Joe is going to talk to us about how we get ourselves mentally and physically prepared and ready for that third act. It's so important. Joe O'Connor, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for having me on.
So I've known Joe for a long time. I could tell you all about him, but I'm going to ask Joe to introduce himself. Joe O'Connor.
Thanks, Carol, for the invite in to have a chat. My name is Joe O'Connor, born and bred here in Limerick in Rathkeale, but I've been living in Tralee for the last 25 odd years now, and I work in the Munster Technological University as a lecturer in physiology and nutrition. And I'm really interested in that whole space of working with business leaders and how we can improve our health. And so my research leads me into that area as well. And I have a bit of a business that works in coaching as well. So I in summary, I look at health and fitness for business.
But also in summary, you're a sports scientist. So not like, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm getting lots of these experts telling me what I should and shouldn't do. On LinkedIn, would you believe? I know they were there on Instagram and that kind of stuff, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, Joe, isn't it?
It is, and it's I suppose one of the great things about LinkedIn was that it was a professional network, and it's the only platform I'm on myself because of that exact reason you said. There's an awful lot of noise coming our way from particularly in the performance space, whether that be physical performance or cognitive performance or just general human performance. And the problem I have with it, Carl, there's so much coming and there's such a tsunami coming at us that a lot of it is contradictory. So I can understand why people almost get stuck in inertia and don't get going because there's so many different levels of advice coming from alleged experts and specialists.
Yeah, there's lots of it out there. And come here, we might talk a little bit later on about some of the research that you're doing, but you're doing a PhD at the moment.
Yeah, I'm doing a professional doctorate here in UL, and it's a professional doctorate in human performance and innovation. And what really drew me in about that is the innovation part. I've been working in human performance for over 20 years, but to be creative and I suppose entrepreneurial about this as well. The research is looking at how our health, our fitness, our lifestyle, and our nutrition habits can improve our cognitive performance. So when it comes to thinking clearly or thinking quickly, or processing speed, we decision making, we put all them together as executive functioning. That's the research I'm looking at the moment, and it's I suppose it quietens the noise, or a phrase I use, Carl, based on what we just said about LinkedIn. It closes the circle on these things a little bit and gives us information on the things that we know work.
Yeah. And come here, in fairness to you've done a bit of research because you think there's correlations between the business that we're in terms of investment and wealth management and financial planning and the kind of business that you do. And you've taken a video that I did, which you can find on our YouTube channel, which are the 7 most common investor mistakes. And you've taken that and you think that you can kind of correlate that with the kind of work that you do.
100%.
Go for it. Tell us all about it.
It's without, financial planning, and I've heard you say this and other people say it as well, that, good financial planning is kind of boring in some places and it should be fairly simple. It should.
100%. You nailed it.
It's the health and fitness and performance world isn't that much different. And one of the things that I always hear you saying, Carol, is that we shouldn't be trying to time the market. It should be time in the market.
Yep.
And meaning that we should let compounding do its work quietly in the background.
Yeah.
I think that's the way you put it before. And that's very much the same with your health. There's no quick fix or quick sell. There's consistency, and a line I always use, and I know you're going to like it, is that intense or consistency should be our intensity. And I think that correlates very much so with the first mistake that you mentioned in financial planning, that let's not be reacting within the market. Let's just get in the market and stay there for a long time. Health and fitness is the same, but we see people that will often try to, and like we're in September now, we're in an awkward time of the year because people are kind of, right, the summer's over now and, I'm very busy and the kids are going back to school and, do you know what? Now this health and fitness thing will be done right now in January. I'll get into it in January. Now
Yeah.
that's a typical example of someone trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
time the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
that if you were to apply yourself in September, October, September, October, November, December, that's 4 months that you can make massive gains in.
Yeah.
But we're trying to time it around January because that's what everyone else does.
Yeah.
And I suppose mistake 2 and 3 you were kind of saying is chasing fads.
Mm.
And get rich fast,
Yeah.
or get rich quick scams, or systems. And that
Scams. They don't exist.
yeah, and it's like there's so many things. As I say, I started college in 1998, and I graduated in 2003, and done other bits and pieces since. But that was my undergraduate degree.
He was 7 when he graduated, by the way.
The joys of being 45 now. It's but so many things have come and gone in that time, and they've got momentum and they've died away again, and they're fads, and I can understand why people want to jump on this dream.
Yeah.
Like if we look at things, we're sold the quick fix.
Yeah.
Like, and I often put it down with a lottery. Like, like I had a financial person one time said to me, just don't do the lottery because those odds are really, really bad. Like,
Yeah.
whereas if you took that money and just put it away little bit by little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
it would be far better off. Your health is the same. Like, we're jumping from fad to fad, and
Yeah.
very few of them are actually worthwhile, if I'm being honest. And we're sold this. Like, do you remember years and years ago? I remember watching this ad on TV, and it used to be the 6-second abs.
Yeah.
And you go
Yeah.
click,
Yeah.
click,
Yeah.
click, and click, 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 and you do 6 seconds work. And someone said to me, they said, "Geez, Joe, I don't know, will that work?"
Yeah.
I goes, "Really? 6 seconds? It won't work."
Yeah.
I don't think it will work, but
Yeah.
it's but it was a thing that
Yeah.
everybody did.
Yeah.
And it's I think part of the problem as well is we shy away from the simple things. I have a line I often use that simple that works is better than complicated that doesn't. But when simple things they don't really sound experty.
Yeah.
It has to be complicated and it has to be fluent.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people in my industry, to be honest, who'll hide behind complexity.
Yeah.
They say,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is really hard now. This is
It's the exact same with us. Yeah. 100%.
oh, geez, no, I'm the expert here now. You
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
listen to
yeah,
me now."
yeah.
Because it's not as simple as sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night, and it's not as simple as eating fruit and vegetables and a little bit of protein,
Yeah.
and it's not as simple as exercising every day. It's far more complicated than that.
Yeah. It's not.
It's not.
But to be fair, I suppose the beauty of you have the sport scientist background, and I suppose that's what you do all day, every day. But this podcast series is about, I suppose, getting business owners or senior executives ready for this third act. But you have your background in business as well, so you do understand that time is limited, and putting complex programs together for people like me, and I've worked with you for a good while, it's just not going to work. So it's not going to, you need kind of, as you say to me, you need the hook, and just make the hook really simple, really easy, and something that you can follow. And going back to that word, I love that phrase, that your intensity is the consistency, or consistency is your intensity. Like I do think that you understand it. You have obviously the scientific background, but because you've been in business yourself, and you've done business, and you're doing business yourself, you do understand that the time constraints and the pressure that people who are at a high level in business, or in kind of larger corporations, that they're under. Like it's really important, isn't it?
It is, Carl, and I suppose my background is sport and exercise science. Sometimes people forget about the exercise scientist. And and that's just on a slight rant, is that a lot of the time we look at sports and we say, right, that sports are the most important things. I firmly disagree with that. I feel physical activity is the most important thing. And even with our kids, physical activity is more important than sport. If someone happens to be good at sport and enjoy sport, and that becomes their physical activity, fantastic. But not everyone is into sports, and physical activity should be available for everyone. But just to go back to your point about the business side of things, and I set up Coach Pact over 10 years ago, where I was working specifically with business people. And I came in with the attitude kind of going, "Okay, I'm going to sell you health. Like, health is going to be fantastic, and this is a good upsell." And the thing that hit me with a lot of business people is they're kind of going, "Well, yeah, that's nice, but it's not a need." So if you're pushing hard in business, and someone comes in and, like I would have done with people, patronize them by, no, you need to be healthy and you need to get sleep and all that. Then when I started running my own businesses and I had to go through COVID and I had to put 7 staff on the EWES, was that what it was called? And I still had to, all of a sudden I was kind of going, no, there's more important things to be done here.
There's a lot of pressure.
And one message I got back from a lot of really successful clients of mine, that they were kind of going, will these habits help me perform better in the boardroom or in the office? Or will they help me make better decisions faster? And can I recall on memory better? And by default, make me more successful. If health is a secondary cell on top of that, fantastic. So my approach to this is that we have to be realistic and see what motivates people.
Yeah.
And that's part of my research. I look at beliefs and values of people, not what the textbook says, because that's completely different. What do people genuinely believe and value? And, you know, at the end of the day, you still have to pay your mortgage. You still have to pay for your kids or whatever has to be done. So there are real life realities that we have to work around. And I think it's very, very important to realize that this is something that we're adding onto a person who's already time poor and may not have a lot of time available to do this. And I think one of the mistakes you made as well is don't be following some of the trendsetters or the influencers we've out there. And on this point, I find a lot of the fitness and health influencers, they might be 22 years of age. You know, they have the genetics of an Olympian. And they could pretty much mess around with their food and not train that much and still be in reasonably good shape. Telling people who are in their 50s, who are time poor, who haven't exercised in 10 years, to just do as I do and you'll be fine. But these influencers are kind of selling a false game.
No, look, 100%. But like I can absolutely say, for me, when I met you, like it's probably 7 or 8 years ago at this stage, I was working way too many hours, probably under a good bit of pressure myself. And when we met and I started on the program, well, like if I'm being honest, the start of it was a little bit difficult. But pretty quickly, what came for me was that clarity in work, in my home life, in my personal life, just way more clear. And you know that old adage from Clive Woodward, teacup, thinking clearly under pressure. I found that when I came under pressure, I was much more well able to cope with, you know, the pressure that comes with business. And after all, it's Metis Ireland. It's not Amazon that I'm running. But I understand, no matter how small your business is or medium-sized your business is, it does come with pressure. And pressure to, you know, you have a responsibility to your clients, to your employees, to all the other stakeholders. But I can absolutely say that one of the things that kept me on the path in the early stages, and I've had over the 7 or 8 years, as you well know, I've had ups and downs, and I've been really, really good for periods, and then, you know, maybe not bad. He made me do a half marathon in Rome, would you believe? I know it's hard to believe looking at me now, but he did, and I completed it. But it was nice to have the goal. But I think it's the knock-on effects for everything. You know, being able to sleep better at night. Like for me, I still struggle with that, as you know, but like that was massive to actually be able to get a night's sleep. Like these are the knock-on effects that are actually probably the better results for business owners.
Yeah, I think a mind shift is needed to use health and fitness habits as a tool for coping with stress. As opposed to, oh, a thing I have to do. Because then it becomes a chore. Whereas if you look at any successful person, they have a toolkit for their success. They can nearly trace back to the good things that they do. And, you know, when we're very stressed or under pressure, one thing that goes is sleep, but probably another thing that goes is good eating habits. And whereas if you reframe it and you say, no, this is a tool to help me perform better, to help me to recover better, and importantly, cope better as well. I'm done with telling people not stress. That for business leaders, I'm kind of like, no, that's going to happen. It's how we cope with it is
100%. I can tell you what it brought for me, right? When I started getting more physically active and carving out some time to just do stuff myself away from work. In hindsight, now I didn't know this at the time, but I wasn't able to differentiate between normal stress and abnormal stress. But when I started getting this clarity, and I say this in work a lot, and I can see people rolling their eyes going, "Jeez, he's talking about that abnormal and normal stress thing again." But it's an absolute fact, because when you can see abnormal stress, you go, "That's not right. So that needs to be fixed." Now, normal stress is, you know, just the normal day-to-day stresses that we all undergo. Having a stress-free life is it just doesn't exist.
No.
But it's to have this clarity to understand what's the difference between the two, and this abnormal stress stuff, you need to deal with that some way, and you need to get that out of your life. But the normal stress, hey, that's just life.
And we can harness it as well. You've heard me speak before about growth.
Yeah.
And two researchers, Brad Stulberg and Steve Magnus, came up with a phrase called the growth equation.
Yeah.
And the growth equation says stress plus rest equals growth.
Yeah.
So that type of stress, you're talking about eustress and stress, they're two different types of stress, can definitely lead to growth when partnered with appropriate rest.
Yeah.
Now, we're all used to sports, and we're all used to, going training. And if I go to the gym and I damage my muscle fibers, the body will repair, will recover. And the byproduct of that is increased muscular strength.
Yeah.
But those muscles would have never got stronger if I hadn't put them under the stress.
Yeah.
They're only responding to the stress.
Yeah.
But everyone knows you have to go home and you have to rest and
Yeah, yeah.
you have to refuel and you have to sleep in order for the body to have that adaptation.
Yeah.
So having this as a coping strategy is very, very important, I think.
Yeah. We talk a lot about, that the risk in terms of investments is losing all your money. Volatility, which is the ups and downs in the stock market, doesn't really matter if you stick it out over time. Is there a correlation there that we can match up with?
Absolutely. Like, we're sold the 6-second abs, or we're sold the bums and tums in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, not at all. Like, and we expect to go from A to B with that nice linear relationship.
Yeah.
And then we can get demotivated when that doesn't happen. But in the reality of physiology, human physiology and exercise physiology, it is undulating all the times. And we want to see trends over time rather than acute changes.
Yeah.
Like, if I was to weigh you in the morning and weigh you throughout the day, I'm going to come back with 20 different weights. So what's your weight?
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge fan, as you know, of weighing scales anyway. I call them the sad step. But, that volatility is part of the process, and we're always oscillating between periods of progress and periods of regress. But collectively, as long as the trend is going in the right direction, that's good. I actually encourage it. Like, I think you had a trip one time where you were saying, look, I'm going away to the rugby for 2 nights. I was like, right, Carl, that's not going to be great for us.
Yeah.
But that's a week away, and you have nothing again for a week afterwards.
Yeah.
So if we have 2-week block with 2 days trip in the middle,
Yeah.
are we going to throw away 2 weeks because we know 2 days are going to be great fun? We had 12 good days.
We did it twice this year. We did it for the trip for the rugby match, and then we did it for the All Together Now festival that I went to. And you're 100% right, because I was in my mind throwing away those 2 weeks or that week or 10 days. But I loved the chat we had, and the way we do it, and it's so this doesn't need to be follow a program on YouTube or whatever, right? We went for a walk and we had a chat about this. And what you said to me was, I said, Jesus, I'm under pressure now in work, I've loads on, and I've got this festival thing coming up, and sure, that's 3 days, and we'll be having a few beers and blah, blah, blah. And you counted it out very quickly. You went, that's 18 days. So you've got 18 days of perfection before you can go into the 3 days and go and enjoy yourself guilt-free. And it was back then we started the 10,000 steps a day and just go and keep going and keep going and keep going. I'm now on day 110 or something like that. But the point is, it was very short term, but committing to a short term goal and focus allows you then to have some of the slips. And you're it's the real life. It's real life, right?
Yeah.
So you're okay, and it should be okay, shouldn't it?
Absolutely. And you have to reward yourself, and you have to live life as well. And the important word you mentioned there, Carl, was guilt. Like, people bring guilt with them about, I didn't do this and I did do that, and sure, it's all out the window now. And in reality, I often get people to repeat these things back to me loudly and straight to my face.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, geez, that sounds a bit silly when I say it out loud. And I'm like, yeah. And, if we can meander our way around this health journey, which we all know is important for our lifelong health, both physically and cognitively, but one of the speed bumps we hit is feeling guilty when we have a blip. But if you know that you can go away and have a good time, if you're going on a wedding or a hen party or a stag or whatever you're doing, and you can say, right, I'm going to really build it up before I go, and I'm going to get back on track really quickly, I'm going to do it. Now, the building up allows you to give yourself the pass, which takes away the guilt. But that's why it gets so much easier to get back on the horse.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, geez, I can't believe I did this and I did that and I had a pizza or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's very hard to motivate yourself to go. Whereas you say, no, that's part of my plan. That's what I planned. Like and I think the seventh mistake, like, so we're talking about volatility and risk. The volatility is normal. The risk is doing nothing on that point.
Yeah.
And that's the risk. People say I'm doing nothing because Mary down the road does an hour and I can only do 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The risk there is you do nothing.
Yeah.
Something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
But I think the seventh mistake you mentioned was about an overall plan, bringing it together.
Yeah.
And I often use that comparison to my world and the financial planning world, in that everyone that follows sport knows that there's a pre-season. And then there might be a pre-competitive season. So a team might go train. And then, like, if you look at the Premiership soccer at the moment, a lot of them went to the States and played against other teams from other countries.
Yeah.
Pre-competitive competition.
Yeah.
Then you have the early competition. And at the moment, there's an international break. And then there's a competitive phase. And then there's a peak phase. And then there's a transition phase. Now, when I speak like that, people kind of go, yeah, that all makes sense. That they can plan out their long-term plan. And they can see where we have to meander. And they can see the speed bumps. And they go, right, that's going to be really busy there. But that's probably going to be a little bit quiet there.
Yeah.
So for me, when you can step back and, like, when I sit down with a client first, I'll often say, right, tell me what's going to stop you now. Just tell me all the things that are going to stop you. Big, small, and indifferent. Okay, let's get them down and let's work around them.
Yeah.
And the second very important part of a plan, if the growth equation is stress plus rest equals growth, we know work is going to give us the stress, and we're going to plan for that stress, because you're going to plan your busy periods. You're not going to, first of whatever month you're going to walk in the door, today is going to be busy. You've been planning for it.
Yeah.
We should also plan our rest. And that's a very important strategy. We should plan the time that's appropriate for the business and appropriate for the person to wind down, but plan that wind down as well.
Yeah.
Same as you do with a sports team. You would plan off season, you plan transitions. Even in some sports, you might rotate your squad. This player's going to play 4 weeks, and then we're going to give him 2 weeks off, and we'll bring another player in. And anyone I say that to, it makes logical sense in a sports context. But we don't do it in the human context, in the corporate space either. Yeah. And I think that's a critical part of planning the busy times and planning the easy times. And one of the main things with planning the easy times, and we've spoken about this before, Carol, is when you're going on holidays, do you really relax when you get to the airport? No, you're pulling your hair out.
Yeah.
Are you relaxed on day one? It could take 3 to 4 days before you switch off. Because you're worrying about, am I missing this? And did so-and-so do that? And geez, did I forget to do that?
Yeah.
Whereas if you plan the downtime, that'll switch your mind off nice and easy because you've it done.
Just if I can go back to my example from earlier on as well, right, about the doing the 10,000 steps a day. So some days are easy and some days are harder. But if you have an overall plan or goal to, I'm going to push this on, you can in the easy days you just rock on. Mm-hmm. In the harder days, you're much more inclined, which is what you said. You're much more inclined to, I'll get it done now. This is important to me. I've decided that and I know that if I get through today, tomorrow is going to be a bit easier. And that's just my example, the 10,000 steps. But it can be like if you're going to the gym, if you just go and say to yourself, well, I'm scheduled to go to the gym today, I'm feeling a bit wrecked. Okay, sometimes you might say, I'm actually not going to go. But what I would say to everybody is just go and do 5 minutes.
Go do something.
Just go and do something and just push on through, because you'll actually feel a great sense of achievement for getting it done in the hard days. In the good days, you'll just get the whole rush that goes with it normally. But I think, the whole idea of having this overall long-term plan and committing to it. And I just wanted to kind of segue into, I have my Garmin watch. So we track, and I'm really bad at, because I'm checking this all the time, which I know I shouldn't, but we track 3 main things on my Garmin watch. So can you talk me through what those 3 things are and why they're important and why you would recommend people track these things?
Yeah, so like we weren't necessarily looking at a fitness program, we were looking at a lifestyle program.
Yeah.
So there are some metrics that we can track that will contribute to your overall lifestyle. Yes, fitness is part of your lifestyle, but so is work. And so these are all part of your lifestyle. And one number that responds positively and negatively, depending on the context, is your heart rate variability. Now, what heart rate variability, different to heart rate on its own. So this is a number that looks at the variability between 2 different readings. So when you're watching the beep of the heartbeat, the 2 peaks either side. What's the variability between the 2 of them? So when you're very stressed, okay, there's going to be very little variability there, because the body's staying in a heightened state.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you're very relaxed, there's a lot of variability because the body's very relaxed and,
Yeah.
it can react.
Yeah.
Sometimes people might have heard of the fight or flight response.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And what we would call that part of your nervous system is the sympathetic nervous system. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, if you didn't have the sympathetic nervous system, you wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Because things that will do will increase your body temperature, it'll increase your respiration rate, it'll increase your heart rate, and it'll start releasing certain hormones around the body so that you can physically get up and go.
Yeah.
If we look at that in the wild, if we have a gazelle eating grass in the savannah, and it looks over and it sees, in the bushes, and it goes, geez, there's a lion over there. Straight away, a bit of testosterone and adrenaline will go, so they can run away.
Yeah.
So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. We need it. But it's also the response we get when we stress a lot.
Yeah.
Both acutely and chronically.
Yeah.
Okay? On the other side of the house, we've got the parasympathetic nervous system. So if we've got fight and flight at one side, which is sympathetic, the parasympathetic, we call that rest and digest. It's when the body's resting and when it might do some digestion and so on. And that's the kind of thing that winds you down in the evening. Okay,
Yeah.
It brings your breathing rate down, brings your circulation down, brings your core body temperature down, and so on. And so what we have to look at doing there is basically trying to find that balance between the two of them. So you're always, again, oscillating or moving from one to the other.
Yeah.
Your heart rate variability is a number that will actually tell us, maybe we're doing a little bit too much on the stress side of things.
Yeah.
And when it's going low, so when we have low variability, and when it goes well, then it will come up. So what we're watching is that not any one day for your heart rate variability.
Yeah. Over a period of time.
We're looking at trends.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
what
yeah.
habits improve those trends.
Yeah.
And when will the time to say, do you know what, maybe today now is a good day to take a half day. Maybe this weekend we should not think about work at all because we have the data to back us up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's heart rate variability.
And that number, just when I'm looking at it, we're trying to get that as high as possible.
up. Let's
So
get it
what
up.
one are we trying to get as low as possible?
Low as possible then is your resting heart rate.
Okay.
And I kind of sell this one a little bit differently in that, could you imagine if you only had a limited number of heartbeats in your lifetime?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the numbers coming down from the day you're born. Well, if we're at rest and it's really low, we're using less of those numbers.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you can't really compare your resting heart rate to other people's resting heart rates because you're genetically predisposed at a certain number. But again, if we can get that coming down over a while,
Yeah.
we're getting good chronic cardiovascular adaptations.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if anyone may have had COVID, that's one of the things they might have noticed, that their resting heart rate, it could be for a series of days or weeks, could remain elevated. And wouldn't come down very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're watching that. When you're in a high stress, burnt out scenario, you'll see that dotting up.
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
one will
yeah.
be coming up.
Yeah.
So we want to keep the resting heart rate as low as possible.
Yeah.
And not any one number. Again, we're looking at trends.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the heart rate variability, we want to come up.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing that we monitor,
I can tell, just before we go on to that, I can tell you, for me, the resting heart rate, there's 2 times it goes up and significantly up. Number one is after a night out.
Yeah.
So it does go up, and that might last for 2 days actually.
Yeah,
Right?
easily, yeah.
But the other one that I've noticed, right, it's a great indicator that my body is fighting some kind of a flu or a cold or something.
100%, yeah.
And it actually goes up in advance of me noticing that I'm not feeling
Well,
right.
nature gives us signs.
Yeah.
We just have to ask ourselves, are we looking at the
Yeah,
signs?
exactly.
Are we reading the signposts?
Yeah. Yeah, so it is it's really interesting. And if you're into the data and into the numbers at all, like I just know we got to get one up and the other down. And I suppose I know good behavior,
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, in terms of nutrition, in terms of exercise, and getting that abnormal stress out of my life, that will help those numbers. What's the third metric that we track, Joe?
Yeah, and times I'm kind of careful saying this. We track sleep duration. Now,
Yeah.
the reason I say we need to be careful is that we don't have great accuracy on sleep zones and so on. And the one thing that we can track relatively okay, it's not as good as we'd like it, but relatively okay, is sleep duration.
Yeah.
And we know everyone has their own circadian rhythm, and some people need more sleep than others, just because the way they're built, really. But in general, we say everyone needs to land in between 7 and 9 hours sleep. Yeah, in general, Carl.
I wish.
But you know as well as I do, when you get a little bit more sleep,
On fire.
Those
On
other
fire.
numbers
Yeah.
we're looking at
Yeah.
go. And I suppose it's an important point to make is that we're looking at three different numbers, but those three different numbers are just three pillars that we're anchoring on that cover so many different things. And I think health and fitness, we have to really appreciate the breadth of things.
Yeah.
There's no one thing. There's lots of
Yeah,
small things that we need to work on. But yeah, sleep for me and sleep hygiene. And I remember you saying before that when you were trying to get out for your few extra steps at night because you had to get your 10,000 steps.
Yeah.
But that fresh air and getting away from the technology and everything,
Yeah.
we used to help you sleep that little bit better as well.
Yeah.
And things that like I often use it as a tool. So me saying to someone, look, alcohol doesn't help you sleep, but you go have 2 glasses of wine to help you sleep, and you say, yeah, I went to sleep, but the following morning my numbers are off the charts. Like, you know, they can be great learning tools when you know your numbers.
Yeah.
And as I was saying, health and performance always leaves a few clues, and we have to look out for the signposts.
Yeah.
You know, they are there. So they're the 3 signposts that you and I talk about.
Yeah.
That's not the same for everyone, to be honest.
No.
It works for you.
It does.
And I think it's important to stress that we need to work out what works for each individual.
Yeah, and I suppose for me, like I'm far from perfect and I'm hardly an Olympic athlete, right? But I know when the numbers are poor, I actually it motivates me into right, just get back on track now and try get those numbers back in check. So I do think some kind of accountability tool for yourself is a really, really, really good idea. I couldn't stress that enough. It definitely works for me. I can't see how it wouldn't work for people just to be tracking their own well-being over a period of time.
It kind of feeds into the consistency, Carl, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, this isn't very intense.
Yeah.
Monitoring this isn't very intense.
No.
But it's very consistent. But having those numbers consistent lead to so many chronic health benefits. But also, like, there's 4 horsemen we talk about in my game. They're the 4 horsemen of chronic disease: cardiovascular disease, you know, neurodegenerative disease, metabolic disease. Like, you know, when we're looking at diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or neurodegenerative disease, when we're talking about Alzheimer's and dementia, cardiovascular disease and cancers. And lots of them are being associated to chronic exposure to stress and chronic exposures to some of the more negative lifestyle habits that we have. Whereas if you have something that can keep you within the bumper plates, you know, I often talk about a road. You know, let's not just try to have this very strict line that we have to stay on. Let's just stay on the motorway. Let's just not hit the ditches. Which allows us to meander around life and enjoy ourselves too a little bit. You know, and a model of health that we'd have spoken before about, Carolyn, it touches on going for the few pints and all that. There's no biological reason I can give you to drink alcohol. There's no good upside of it. But there's a model of health where we talk about the biopsychosocial model of health.
Yeah, we might talk about that later on because I do want to touch on the blue zones later on.
Yeah,
and we might get to them later on.
So yeah.
You know the FIRE movement. So the FIRE movement is financial independence, retire early. I've also spoken about that, and we indeed had Michael Houghton on this show before talking about it. I've been somewhat critical because the FIRE movement, for me, doesn't account for, well, what's your sense of purpose? But anyway, let's leave that aside. Today we're launching the PIRE movement. Actually, I can't claim any of this. This is Joe's idea. So Joe, let's launch the PIRE movement.
Yeah.
What's the PIRE movement?
Well, it's something I've been saying for a while, and I hope I'm not. I hope I'm saying it because I can't find it written anywhere else, but I'm sure someone has thought of it at some point. But, you know, it's a play on the FIRE movement.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been reading on the FIRE movement, and, you know, Keane puts out a lot of stuff here.
He does,
on it, and it's where we, you know, financially independent, retire early. Well, one of the worst things I hate, or the idea, this frightens me, to be honest, and it was a phrase that John F. Kennedy came out with, that the time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining.
Yeah.
Okay? My spin on that, and linking it back to FIRE, is I just spoke about chronic disease. That's chronic. It's long term. It doesn't happen acutely, it's chronically. So PIRE, for me, and it's something I'd really like to do, is to be physically independent and to retire energized.
Physically independent and retire energized. Now, as a goal, as a dream, as an aspiration, what more do you want? Tell us more.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a picture I often show to the students when I talk about this stuff, and it's a lovely older couple, and they're in Venice, going down a gondola, Live like that's a dream for an awful lot of people, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. The problem is the two of them are there and they're sound asleep. So it's they're obviously wrecked and exhausted, and they
Yeah,
just don't
yeah,
have the
yeah, yeah.
energy to enjoy their retirement.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they've probably saved up over years and wanted to do this, and it was a bucket list,
yeah.
and now they're asleep going down the the
The
the,
canal.
the canal in Venice. Um, there's so many things that we want to do with our kids or with our grandkids,
Yeah,
and live life to the full.
yeah.
I would prefer to be broke and healthy than have all the money in the world and not have my health.
100%.
You know, and within that health, I would like to be physically able to do the things that I'd love to do
Yeah,
when I and retire. I'm not a huge fan of the idea of not working because I enjoy what I do, but definitely changing gears. And I suppose this podcast is the third act.
yeah,
You know that like one thing, myself and my wife Tina, back in 2004, we traveled the world and we toured around for a whole year. Like I'd love to be able to do that in my 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
Let's cram it into 8 weeks or something and have great fun and
yeah, yeah.
you know, go snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef
Yeah, yeah.
and be physically able to do it.
Yeah,
Obviously not at the same level I could do it when I was 24,
yeah,
but I don't want my physical well-being to
Yeah.
stop me living in my later years.
yeah. And look, this is so. I really hope that the audience are watching and listening, because this is aimed at the super successful business owners who are at it 100 miles an hour for so long, and you do get to create this opportunity for yourself. But if you don't look after your physical, your mental self during the journey, whilst you're making the let's just call it out, making the money to
Yep.
allow yourself go live the life that you want to live, well then it's all pretty pointless. And I'm minded of that the book The Regrets of the Dying. Nobody said they wished they worked more. Nobody said they wished they had more money. They all wanted more time with their loved ones to do stuff that they really wanted to do. And I suppose that's what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
Joe, I'm gonna on Pyre, because I think Pyre is, I just love this. I think we're launching Pyre big time. Let's take a little break there, because I think we're gonna be talking for ages and ages. We still need to talk about the blue zones. We still need to talk about, what does proper nutrition look like? Maybe glean some lessons from what elite athletes do that we could talk to our audience about. So let's take a little break there, and we'll come back and we'll chat about those things. Now, if you've liked the third act series thus far, and you're going to listen to part 2 of my discussion with Joe, please do help us and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that will help us get this message out to loads more people and allow us continue the series over the coming weeks and months. Okay, Joe, see you shortly for part 2.
See you soon.